Before I dive in, I want to talk about what a product growth team is. This is my definition. It's a product growth team will prioritize experiments to ultimately grow your top line revenue by automating as much of your revenue generation as possible across the entire life cycle of the customer. The evolution of a lead qualification I think is important here, just because I want to call out we are a product-led business at 7 Shifts, but there are sales-led businesses, and you can have product growth teams in both of these business software types. But I want to call out that sales-led businesses are usually value to business, whereas product-led businesses are value to users. So the first step is building that story. And really what you want to do is build a coalition of individuals that are bought into this product growth team and are able to push forward this agenda that you want to build this team inside your organization. And the best way that you can do that is to first take a step back and see the departments in your business and what metrics they're trying to grow. At the end of the day, all metrics will tie into top line revenue or cutting costs, but ultimately you want to identify that department or the departments that really have more direct growth targets related to revenue. And when you find that department, you're going to start with the executives. You're going to get buy-in from them. And ultimately, you want to find that executive sponsor and relentlessly work with them to build that mindset. If they don't see the value yet in a product growth team, you're going to have to work with them to help them understand the value of that and then help them be a catalyst for getting that product growth team up and running in your organization. The best way that you can do this is to talk their language. All executives across the globe talk 2 languages, data and money. And those are really, really important points because it's very, very compelling. It's hard to argue with those facts. The next team you want to get buy-in from is sales and marketing. There's really 2 myths that I had to debunk. The first one is that this team is not meant to replace any team. It's not meant to replace any function either. What it's meant to do is amplify existing functions. And the second was around collaboration and communication. This team is meant to connect those kind of sticky points or the areas where you might have gaps in your business where departments may not be sharing information, or there might be the same project going on across two different departments. You want to have this team sit across that and see those opportunities and connect those dots for the team. So that was a really big issue that I had to discuss with sales and marketing. For product and engineering, the best way you can get buy-in with engineering, and it can be difficult because product growth teams move fast, and fast teams that write code end up creating technical debt. The best way you can get this buy-in is around the milestone of getting your next round of funding, especially if you're an earlier startup. If you get that next round of funding, you're able to compound your growth, hire on additional developers that allow you to build a much more scalable and stable product. And this team can continue to grow and expand while continuing to create a stable code base for your customers. From a product perspective, every product manager, especially seasoned ones, have shipped something that nobody used or it didn't land. And so ideally, this team is able to move significantly faster than any product team can, and they're able to identify opportunities that should be scaled and not be the one that scales them, but identify opportunities that should be scaled. And so because you sit on top of the entire customer lifecycle, you're able to identify them and pass those opportunities that have proven data behind them that they should be built. And then those product teams can be more effective and build only the things that make sense and bring value to both your business and your customer. So I want to stress, when you're proving the value, and this takes time, this doesn't happen overnight, but you want to do this outside of even having a product growth team, especially because you're still in this advocation phase. If you are someone who manages a backlog with developers who work on pieces of the product, you can do this. You don't have to be an actual formal title, and any great or experienced product leader will definitely encourage doing more with the resources that you have as a product manager. And so what you can do is just identify opportunities internally where you see those gaps, where you see some deficiencies, or you see an area that can be amplified or could amplify a function within your organization. So I talked about advocating and really proving that value and showcasing that. And like I said, a team does not have to exist for you to do some of those exercises. You can just see those opportunities and move on them and show that value. The next part, though, is just implementing that team. And there's 3 kind of steps to that one as well. And the first one is those guiding principles. And it might seem silly, but you've just created this team and you're ready to go. But I recommend you take a step back, you sit down as a team, and you identify what is going to help us make decisions as a team. This is really, really important because you want to be aligned with how you're making these decisions. An area that's really important is prioritization. And so this is an area that, because you sit on top of the customer lifecycle, you can pull any of the levers of your business. You ultimately want to align this team with the company objectives. And the best way you can do that is through cascading OKRs, objective key results. Companies always set objectives quarterly of what they want to accomplish, how they want to grow. And so you want to identify one of those objectives as the team and say, how can we help amplify and ensure and exceed those targets that are set? And so you can set key results for yourselves. Those key results can have objectives. Again, they just keep cascading. So a really, really powerful way to align with the business, to really amplify what the business is trying to accomplish in a given quarter or year. An area that I was really passionate about as a product manager was backlog management. And really, you're managing a backlog of experiments and not of features. When we first kicked off this team, we went to multiple teams to talk about how can we increase conversion rate. We had over 500 ideas. So the simplest way we did this is just with simple scoring and with themes. We could group, some of these concepts together within how we can improve conversion rate. And we created a simple score, which is like, 1 to 5, and there was 4 of them. So you divide by 4 and you got a simple number. It can really help just weed out the noise and identify what's the highest opportunity thing you should be working on. The other is phrasing items as a hypothesis and not a solution. Instead of saying, we're going to build a trial checklist, it's adding a trial checklist will increase PQLs. It's really important to phrase it as a hypothesis so that an external stakeholder, or when you're reviewing this massive backlog of experiments later, you understand what you're trying to accomplish or what's the objective of the experiment you're trying to run. So that's really, really important. You can also spool up 15-minute designs on each hypothesis. Your designer can quickly just draw something up just to help kind of keep the juices flowing as to what you were thinking about and let other stakeholders visualize kind of the experiment that you're trying to run. Providing visibility and reasoning to items prioritized or deprioritized that were suggested from stakeholders is really, really important. External stakeholders to this team are fundamental to the idea generation of experiments you're going to run. So you don't want those folks to be discouraged. They want this team to succeed. And so they're giving all these ideas and they're not seeing any traction. So you want to provide visibility around how these ideas are getting prioritized, where they sit. You want to make sure you're opening that dialogue and keeping that discussion going from all different departments of your business. One that I was really passionate about was building consistent structure for a backlog item. You want to have a hypothesis, an objective, the reasoning, what you're trying to learn on every single one. You want that to be consistent just so it's easy to scan, easy to understand, and see what you're trying to accomplish. So this product growth team, who should be on this team? So it's really more about skill sets than people. And so ideally you have a driver, someone that has a product manager skill set. They're very data driven for their decision making and prioritization, but ultimately they're setting the cadence for the team and they're managing that backlog. That's ideally that function is they have that skill set and they can manage that, document it, move forward, progress, all that. You need someone that's pushing this team forward. You need a marketer. You need someone that has product marketing or marketing experience. They're data driven, but ultimately they can wear lots of hats within the marketing lifecycle. They can do customer messaging, they can do branding, they can do copywriting, they have access to your communication channels. It's a really, really important skill set to have. The code writers, without anybody writing code, you're not running any experiments and you're not growing. So ideally you have a team that is around 2 to 3 developers. Ideally you have the devs where customers pay you. So if they pay you on mobile, you got 2 devs there. And maybe 1 on web. It just depends on your structure. But I want to stress that you want developers who avoid architecting systems. Edge cases will kill this team. You want to make sure you're moving quickly and you're okay with throwing away your work. So that work will prove a case, and then another team will take that case on and scale it and architect that system and triage all those edge cases. So you want to make sure, think early stage startup developer, someone with a really wide set of skills, but is able to move quickly and ship value. You want a designer, specifically a product designer, someone with a user experience mindset with user friction awareness. That's a lot of what you do on a product growth team, is just remove friction and it provides value. But it's more about just beautiful pages. It's functional and intuitive experiences. That's really important. And lastly, you need a statistician, a data person that can pull numbers, interpret and validate hypotheses through analysis, and they're really strong in SQL and A/B test. And the thing that I want to stress is this could be one person. Now, if this is one person in your organization, never let them go. But ideally, you have this skill set across a team, And so you just want to make sure that these skills are met within that team. And if you do, then the likelihood of success for this team is very, very high. These are kind of the fundamentals that you need for a successful product growth team. And those are the skills, but the tools that you'll need, and this is what we use at 7 Shifts. I just want to use this as an example. This is how we work, but it's really about, you need a backlog of truth of where people can go. We use Product Board, but they can go see where you're at, see the progress, see links to results, anything like that. Our workspaces, we use Google Suite. Miro, very, very powerful tool, especially in this new remote world. Jira we used for ticketing, for our engineering. For within the experience, sometimes we just run a quick prototype, and that would be the experiment. We had Figma that we would do designs in, and sometimes the experiment would just be right in production. Wouldn't even design it, we're like, solve it, and the developers would just figure it out. It was great. So user behavior is really, really important. I'm a big fan of Amplitude, behavioral analytics tool. Very, very powerful to see, is the person or the users doing the things that you want them to do. That's really, really important. Google Analytics is a great tool for top of funnel, demand gen, ad attribution, very powerful, but it doesn't have to be Google Analytics, just a tool that does that function. Also mentioned, you'll need an A/B test system. We decided to build something a little bit first party at 7 Shifts, but you can use a third party A/B test system as well. And lastly, you need something to track your KPIs, some sort of tool that helps you pull that data together and say, are you on track with increasing X metric? The most important part of your success is to document as you work. Having the information go along with you as you work, as opposed to going and documenting a 10-page paper and having someone hopefully read that. You want to have your backlog source of truth linked to all the content as you work. So all those designs, we had an insight doc at 7 Shifts that anybody could access. I would link our product managers to what we learned and how we ran things inside their areas and how they can improve at their own backlog prioritization method. And so really you want to have this backlog that says, this is our source of truth. It links to everything. Miro links to Amplitude, and Amplitude links to Google, and everything is cross-linked. And that's really, really important to say, this is how we got to where we are today without you having to stop and share, kind of progress updates. That's not to say you don't need status updates. We still had them with our executive leadership, but that doesn't necessarily mean you need to slow yourself down. It's just you're documenting as you work. So it's kind of two birds with one stone. So just some things I've learned along the way. So just 6 tips that I have. The first one is changing company process and getting buy-in takes time and perseverance. This is not something that happens overnight. Alignment on metrics across departments is critical for this team to be a success. And what I mean by that is, if you have varying metrics across your organization, you want to make sure that you're driving growth for all teams. If you have an inverse growth metric, that team may be discouraged because you're actually hurting what they're trying to grow. So you want to make sure you're thinking very critically about the metrics that you're trying to grow for everyone to say, yes, this team is growing our company. Let's keep going. Let's keep working with this team. The next is a velocity of experiments is the best leading indicator of success for a product growth team. We were averaging around 30 pre-COVID, and so we wanted to keep to that per month. Like, can we keep that cadence and be shipping things? Because ultimately, the more you ship, the more you learn. And this is where a culture of failure must be embraced. This is really, really important because you're going to ship 10 things. 9 of them are probably going to fail, or they may not do what you expected them to do, but there's going to be one that really exponentially grows what you are trying to accomplish, which is great. And it's usually because those 9 other things helped you understand and learn how to make that one work. Another item is starting small and iterating quickly. We just started day 1. Here's our team. We had some agile ceremonies, and then we just started iterating. Like I said, we didn't have a lot of process for the team. We self-organized, and now we're a well-oiled machine that just keeps churning out opportunities for the business. And lastly, it's the providing tools and training to all product teams to build an experimentation mindset. This is really, really important because once this team begins to function at a high velocity and a high capacity, you start to be able to learn things that can be shared with other teams, ways to do things within your product or insights that you've learned. And you want to make sure you're doing lunch and learns and webinars and sharing tools that you use and strategies that you use, because product growth isn't just one team. All teams can function in this way. They can think about running experiments over more scaled product work. So it's a really valuable thing to share this mindset and the way that you work with other product teams.